The hot wind blew across the empty plains like it carried secrets nobody dared speak. Vannie Cole stood at the edge of her ranch, the dust swirling around her boots as if the earth itself wanted to swallow her worries whole. Her hands shook as she stared at a piece of paper that could take everything from her. It was her husband's will, and every word felt like a nail hammering into her heart. 1 year. 1 year to give birth to a male child, or the land she loved would be taken from her. If she failed, her husband's rich brother would claim the ranch and throw her out with nothing but memories of a life she thought she had secured. Vannie was only 28, but she carried more sorrow than most women twice her age. She had buried her husband, Ralston Cole, just 3 months back. He had been kind but much older, and sickness had stolen him before they ever had the chance to grow a family. All she had left was 200 acres of grassland, 12 cattle, and a 2-room cabin that smelled like the man she once shared it with. Losing it felt like losing him all over again. The will in her hands felt heavier than any gun she had ever held. The town had already started whispering. A woman alone could not run a ranch forever, and a woman without a child had no claim strong enough to fight men with power. Vannie heard every whisper and saw every judging stare each Sunday at the church in Sagebrush Flats. Thatcher Voss was the worst of them all. He walked into her yard that very morning, his boots too clean for anyone who claimed to understand dirt and sweat. His smile was slick like a rattlesnake ready to strike. "You got no man. You got no heir. Come August next year, all this will be mine," he said, waving his hand at her land as if he already owned it. "Best sell early. You don't want the embarrassment of being thrown off." He left with a grin that made Vannie want to break every window in the house just to hear something shatter besides her future. By sunset, the weight of the sky felt too heavy to hold. So she rode out to see the only person she trusted, Almeda Rowe, a woman who had buried 2 husbands and lived to curse the men who dared gossip about her. Almeda was folding laundry behind her house when Vannie arrived, tears burning in her eyes. "They want to take everything," Vannie choked out. If I can't." She could not finish. Saying it made it real. Almeda listened. Not once did she look away or try to hush the truth. "So, you need a baby," Almeda said, plain as a hammer striking a nail. "Not a husband, a baby." Vannie almost dropped her teacup. "I cannot go find a man just to—" "Why not?" Almeda shrugged. "Men been taking what they want for years. Time a woman did the same." Vannie's heart pounded so loud she thought her ribs might crack. The idea was wicked, shameful, a sin they would preach about for months. "People will talk," Vannie whispered. "They already talk," Almeda replied. "Question is, do you stay and fight, or let that Voss snake win?" There, on that porch, with laundry flapping in the wind like flags surrendering to a storm, Vannie faced the impossible. Find a man, grow an heir, before the law and greed stole everything. But what kind of man could she even ask such a thing? She pictured the men in town, boastful cowboys, rough ranchers, the sheriff who smiled only when writing fines. None of them felt right. None felt safe. And then her eyes drifted across the plains. To her own ranch, to a young cowboy repairing the fence line where the cattle sometimes slipped through. Bridger McCallan, quiet, gentle, shy as a deer at a watering hole. He had stayed after her husband died, working harder than anyone asked him to. His hair always fell into his eyes, and he would blush every time she thanked him for fixing something. He had nowhere else to go, no one waiting for him. And most important of all, he cared. Vannie tried to push the foolish thought away, but it stuck like burrs in cloth. Almeda leaned closer, her voice low and certain. "You need a man who can plant a seed of an heir deep and steady," she said. "And that cowboy out there, he's been looking at you like you're the last good thing left in this world." Vannie's breath caught. The sun dropped, painting the sky blood red behind the lonely cowboy working her land. He did not know he was the answer to her future. the key to her survival. Yet as she watched him, her heart whispered something she did not dare say out loud. Maybe he was also the key to her happiness. The night deepened, and Vannie stood in silence, hands shaking with a mix of fear and hope. The wind carried the smell of fresh grass and summer dust. She knew one thing for certain. Before the next full moon, she would need to find her courage, face Bridger, and ask the question no man expected from a widow. Would you give me a son? The decision was made, and the danger had just begun. The next morning, Vannie woke before the rooster crowed. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Bridger's face and thought of the impossible question she needed to ask. Fear turned her stomach like spoiled milk. What if he laughed at her? What if he thought her wicked? What if he said yes, and it changed everything? She spent the whole morning pacing the porch, rehearsing words, then tossing them away like scraps. There was no polite way to tell a man she needed a baby without the promise of love or a wedding ring. By noon, she still had no courage left to borrow. Bridger was in the corral fixing a saddle strap when she finally walked toward him. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone braver. The sky burned hot overhead, and dust floated in the air. He stood when he noticed her, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "Mornin', Mrs. Cole," he said softly. Bridger always spoke like his voice was a secret. "Vannie," she corrected, trying to sound calm. "You can call me Vannie." His cheeks warmed pink, and he nodded as if the honor of her first name was too much. "What do you need?" he asked. "Everything," she thought. "I need everything from you." But she could not speak. Her throat locked tight like a gate rusted shut. Bridger waited, eyes gentle and patient. He had those quiet eyes that looked like they carried more understanding than he'd ever speak. I have a problem," she finally managed. He nodded, serious. "Whatever it is, I'll help." "You don't even know what I'm asking." "No matter. This is your home, and it's mine to protect while I'm here." Those words made her heart ache. He already cared, maybe more than she realized. Vannie's hands trembled as she held the fence rail. "It's about the will," she said. "Ralston's will. I need a child, a son, or I lose the ranch." Bridger's jaw tightened, anger flashing at the idea of her losing everything. "That won't happen," he said quickly. "Nobody taking this place. Not while I'm standing." She looked straight into his eyes, and fear made her nearly stop, but Almeida's voice echoed in her mind. "Be brave for what is yours." "I need a man," she said, breath shaking. "Not a husband, just a man who can give me a baby, a boy." Bridger froze like his boots rooted into the earth. His eyes widened, color rushing to his face. For a heartbeat, she thought she had ruined everything. Then he spoke, voice rough and unsure. "You mean me?" Quote. Vannie's chest squeezed tight, but she nodded. "You are the only man I trust," she whispered. The corral fell silent. Even the horses stopped pawing the dirt, as if the world was holding its breath. Bridger looked down at his hands, those strong hands that worked her ranch day and night. When he looked up again, something new shone in his eyes. Fear, yes, but also a soft spark of hope. "Mrs. Vannie," he corrected himself shyly. "I ain't never been with a woman proper. I wouldn't want to make you uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to hurt you." His honesty cut deep. He wasn't a man who boasted or bragged. He cared too much for that. "You could never hurt me," she said. "But what about the talk?" he asked. "People will know. They'll gossip." "I don't want to shame you." She stepped closer. "Losing this ranch would shame me more. I need someone kind, someone good, someone who would help me because he cares." The wind blew dirt between them like fate itself giving a warning. Bridger swallowed hard. "If I do this, we'd be tied. Forever. A child ain't just a way to save a ranch. It's a life. It deserves a family." His voice cracked like a breaking fence post. "I would want to stay if I gave you a child. I'd want to stay by your side." Her heart slammed against her ribs. Before she could speak, a sharp voice cut the air. "Well now, ain't this a sight?" Vannie turned to see Thatcher Voss on horseback near the road, smirk carved into his smug face. He leaned forward in his saddle, eyes crawling over Bridger like he was dirt. "Didn't figure you'd go begging to a ranch hand?" Thatcher spat. "Town's already buzzing about your little situation, but this is desperate even for you." Bridger stiffened, fists balling. "You best ride on," he warned, voice low. Thatcher ignored him completely. "Mrs. Cole," Thatcher said loudly, "I'll be back in 2 days with a buying offer. Best that ranch goes to a man with a name, not a stray boy playing cowboy." Before either could respond, Thatcher kicked his horse and rode away laughing, dust trailing behind him like a curse. Vannie's body shook with anger and fear. Bridger stepped close, his voice steady now. "You ain't losing this ranch. Not to him, not to anybody." His hand brushed hers, rough fingers trembling just a little. "I'll give you what you need, a son. I promise you that." Her breath caught, not in fear anymore, but in something dangerously close to hope. The shy cowboy she thought too gentle to ask anything of was suddenly her only chance at survival. And maybe more. The sun dipped lower in the sky as they stood silently, the air between them heavy with a future that now had no turning back. The wind was quiet the night Bridger walked into Vannie's home, not as a ranch hand, but as the man she asked to save her world. The oil lamp flickered, throwing warm light across the small room. His footsteps were careful, slow, as if he feared breaking the moment. Vannie stood near the table, hands clasped tight together. Her heart pounded so loud she thought he could hear it. She had faced loss, death, and the threat of ruin, yet nothing had ever frightened her like the hope she carried now. Bridger removed his hat, twisting it in his fingers. "I don't want you to feel forced," he said quietly. "If this ain't what you want—" "It is," Vannie whispered. "I want this. I want you." Those words hit him deeper than she knew. He stepped closer, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll take care of you," he said. "And I'll take care of the baby. You won't face any of this alone." A tear slipped down her cheek. Bridger gently brushed it away with his thumb, his touch softer than the fear she held. For a moment, nothing else mattered. No will, no deadline, no hateful banker riding toward their ruin. Only them, only the choice they had made together. That night, Vannie learned that the shy cowboy was gentle and steady, keeping every promise with his hands and heart. And Bridger learned that the widow who worked harder than any man on the ranch wasn't as unbreakable as she looked. They held on to each other like the storm outside could not reach them. When morning arrived, the sun painted the plains gold. Vannie woke in Bridger's arms, his breath warm against her neck. For the first time since Ralston's death, she felt alive. She felt safe. But safety never lasted long in Sagebrush Flats. 2 months later, the gossip began. A widow showing early meant only one thing. Tongues wagged. Women stared. Even the preacher whispered behind his hand. Vannie kept her head high, but shame pricked her like nettles. Bridger worked harder than ever, building fences and a future in the same breath. He tried to ignore the snickers and smirks men shot his way. He had never asked for attention, and now the whole town seemed to know his business. Then came autumn. Leaves turned brittle brown. Cattle grew thick coats. And Thatcher Voss returned, this time with legal papers and smug confidence. He strode into Hartwell's general store when Vannie was picking up flour. "Well, well," he drawled loud enough for every customer to listen. "That baby due awful soon for a woman widowed only a few months." People stopped to stare. Thatcher leaned in with a wolf's grin. "Premature births make tricky heirs. Judges look hard at timelines, Mrs. Cole." For the first time, Vannie didn't tremble. She stared him down with steel in her spine. "This baby is mine, and this ranch stays mine. You won't take anything from me." Thatcher's smirk faltered. He hated when someone challenged his power. He left with a final warning, "I'll see you in court." But the court wasn't what she feared. Winter brought storms cruel enough to cut through walls. Vannie's belly grew heavy. Bridger stayed awake most nights, keeping the fire alive and warming water for her aching back. He was terrified of losing her, terrified of failing her, terrified of not being enough. Then came the night her water broke. Snow howled at the windows like wolves hungry for more than cattle. Dr. Craven made it through the blizzard by lantern light. Almeida arrived right behind him, sleeves rolled up and jaw set like a soldier, marching into battle. Hours passed. Then, many more. Vannie screamed into the night, gripping Bridger's hand until he thought she'd break bone. When she cried that she could not do it anymore, he held her tighter. "You can," he whispered over and over. "We've come too far to stop now. I love you, Vannie, please, stay with me." Love. The word cut through her pain like lightning through darkness. With one last push, a new cry filled the house. A strong, loud, angry cry. The cry of a son determined to be heard. "It's a boy!" Dr. Craven shouted. Bridger fell to his knees, head bowed in gratitude as tears streaked his dusty cheeks. Vannie sobbed as they placed the tiny child in her arms, red, perfect, and alive. Bridger touched the baby's small fingers, voice trembling. "What will we call him?" Vannie looked into her husband's eyes. Yes, her husband. Because she knew they belonged to each other long before this night. "Ralston," she said softly, "but he takes your name." Dr. Craven filled out the birth record with proud hands. Ralston McCallan. Born before the deadline, born legitimate, born loved. Come spring, Thatcher tried once more with loud threats and weak claims. Sheriff Sutton slammed the courthouse door in his face and told him to ride far away before he embarrassed himself again. The ranch, every inch of it, remained in the rightful family. One warm evening, while rocking little Ralston on the porch, Vannie leaned into Bridger's side. He wrapped his arm around her, kissing the top of her head as the baby slept between them. "You saved us," she whispered. Bridger shook his head. "No, Vannie, you saved me. I was nobody, just a stray cowboy with no place to call home." She looked into his soft brown eyes, the same eyes she once feared to look into too long. "You are my home," she said. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the ranch that was fought for with love and courage. And there they stayed, the widow who dared to fight convention and the shy cowboy who became her strength, raising their son under the vast western sky. Somewhere in town, folks still whispered about how it all began, about the widow with nothing left to lose, and the quiet cowboy who gave her everything she didn't know she was searching for.